One of the comments, is Jack dead? My God.
Still alive.
I have never been more alive. Holy crap. What an unbelievable day. Folks, all right, just backstory. I take my young child to the Kentucky spring game. It was a spring game. There was not a lot to talk about with that. Take him to the zoo. We go to the zoo. I'm walking into the gorilla exhibit, where there's no cell service, by the way. That was a blast. Cody Fueger boom pops up on my phone. What the hell? What's this about? Is Lamar Wilkerson spurning Indiana for God knows why while he's still on campus? I don't know. This is bizarre. And then the Jonathan Gavoni notification pops up. Andrija Jelavic of Croatia is a Kentucky Wildcat. Had I heard of him? No, I hadn't. Nobody had. But guess what? That's what this is all about. It was so much fun to see just the surprise, oh my goodness, what's going on? I can't believe. And we get it. It was so much fun. And then now here we are. Tonight, we were setting up like, hey, I had some stuff to do. We got to wrap up shop, and then we'll do a rapid reaction later in the day. And then we get a follow-up boom, a double boom. And we don't get, it's not like a boom text, not an obvious boom. So we're like, okay, could this be a return announcement? What's the deal here? Boom, Brandon Garrison announces his return for year 2 in Lexington, year 3 in college basketball. Jack Pilgrim, Stephen Peak, and Jacob Polachek. Folks, what a day. What an absolute day. Jacob, how are you doing on this beautiful Saturday evening?
I'm doing great. Every new boom we get, we're getting closer to getting our final roster for Kentucky for next season. The commitment earlier today got me really excited. I'm excited to talk about him and then getting Brandon Garrison back. I got to give you credit because you were really the first person, Jack, to really talk about Brandon Garrison's potential for coming back next season. And this really has Kentucky with an absolutely loaded front court.
Yeah, so Stephen, we got to talk in order of operations. Did you know who Andrija Jelavic was before today?
I had no idea who he was, but I have a feeling I'm going to get very familiar with him. And you know what? I already love him. We had to have him. I didn't know who he was a few hours ago, but I just know we had to have him.
So when the Alvaro Fulgaris stuff unfolds and Kentucky removes itself from consideration, I had it on pretty good authority that Brandon Garrison was going to return for another season as the outside portal noise was growing. And there were a lot of other schools. I'll be totally honest. There were other schools that were kind of sending their pitches through back channels wanting Brandon Garrison to come to their school. So it was enough to be like, all right, we should at least be on head on a swivel season and acknowledge that there is something to this. But as that noise is kind of picking up, you talk to folks around the program and they're growing more and more confident about a second season of Brandon Garrison in Lexington. You're going, all right, gotta give credit where it's due for this staff. As people are trying to steal your dude off your roster, you're feeling pretty good that you're going to be able to retain him. You get that news obviously tonight, but obviously a second thought whenever Jelavic, Jacob, announces his commitment. You go, well, does this have anything to do with Garrison? Did something change at the last minute that had them scrambling to go find somewhere else? Obviously different position, different styles of play, whatever, but it's a front court body. It just had people a little bit on edge. You check back in with some people around the program, have the same questions. Hey, does this have anything to do with Brandon Garrison? It's very, very firm no. And then now we see why, because we get both of them, Jacob, and there's a lot to be excited about both of them.
Yeah, I wasn't too worried because I am a subscriber of KSR Plus, and I did see Jack Pilgrim's thread. So if you're a subscriber of KSR Plus, you're probably not worried about it. But yeah, Jelavic is an awesome pickup. He was a guy that really could have been in draft consideration for 2025. The one thing is just the inconsistency with the shot. He's a good shooter, but he hasn't been super consistent with it. So if he can have a year next year where he's shooting consistently, he's already a really good rebounder, can finish around the rim. If he does all of that, he'll be an NBA player in a year.
Yeah, Jelavic, a guy that played high-level professional basketball. It reminds me of where we were when Big Z committed, again, Croatian kid too, where we kind of watched some of these highlights and you're like, Whoa, man, there's a lot to like there. And Stephen, a 21-year-old freshman coming into college basketball. We got excited about the Mormon Mamba, Colin Chandler, being an old man as a freshman. Now we get another one, another experienced youth. Is that the way we're going to describe this, Stephen?
Yeah, why not? I mean, right here, this shot right there, top of the key. Bang. I love this kid's follow through. I love his shot. Shot looks so smooth. Looks like he's comfortable with the ball in his hand. Tough finish there. I mean, I looked into his league just a little bit before we came on. And, you're playing teams from like from several different countries. The league that he plays in. I'm looking at his tape. It's not like, I don't think this is like the most competitive league, but he's played against some decent pro teams. I mean, when I first watching this, got me pretty excited and kind of seeing how he fits in Pope's system. But I'll tell you what, I'm real excited about Brandon Garrison. I don't know which one's going to be the bigger one out of the two in the long run, but I know what we've seen out of Brandon, and I think he can only get better with the pieces that you now have around him. And I think you're going to see a much improved Brandon Garrison as well. Let me see as this ad is going to play now. We all got to pay bills.
We're producing on the fly, baby.
Yes, it's going to be chaos. I'm really excited about this edition. I really think that when you're talking about somebody who can stretch the floor, he looks like that guy, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, and like there's nothing you can stress more about just the depth and Jacob. Just knowing that you have both, knowing that you have, so like the people that were questioning, well, what about Jaden Quaintance? Is his ACL going to be where it needs to be in, September as hoped? And, what about October? Will he be ready for the season opener in November? Well, this kind of gives you some leeway. Like, when you have Jelavic, when you have Brandon Garrison back, when you have, we'll see what happens with Jaden Quaintance in terms of timeline, but you're not in a position, Jacob, where you're rushed to have Jaden Quaintance on the floor day one, if, at all costs. You're in a position where you can, bring him along slowly, not rush him, bring him back when he is absolutely ready to go full strength, whether that's, late November, early December, whatever. You have no pressure whatsoever because your depth is so good when you have Jelavic, when you have Garrison, when you have Malachi Moreno, you have Mo Diabate as a four. Like, you look at all the different options, and we just watched what happened, Jacob, with Florida winning a national championship with one of the deepest front courts in college basketball. It really has that same feel where we're building one of the most talented and deep front courts in the game.
Yeah, and I think last year's Kentucky roster was a really deep team, but you had some high-end guys that if they got hurt, you were in a little bit of trouble, and you didn't really have a really high upside team. When I'm looking at this upcoming year Kentucky team, it's just a ton of high upside guys. Cam Williams, a guy that could be in NBA talks. Jaden Quaintance is probably a one more and done guy, lottery pick. Diabate could be an NBA player. And then Jelavic, who knows if he could be an NBA player one more year, and we could be potentially talking about him as a first rounder.
Switching gears back to Brandon Garrison, because again, when you have so much ridiculous news, like, you got to just kind of be all over the place and be in scramble mode. Stephen, Brandon Garrison announced his return to the University of Kentucky. In the first clip that shows up is him fighting the entire Louisville bench by himself. Are you kidding?
I love that.
I love this kid as is. Again, it's Brandon Garrison time in Brandon Garrison's mind always. But my goodness, man.
You need somebody like that, don't you? I mean, I've talked about this a little bit last year. Like, in that Oklahoma game, I was worried he might get a technical at the end after coming up with the partial block to save the game. He didn't. He's managed to not get a ton. Did he get a technical this year? He had to have gotten at least one.
Yeah, he got because he shot the guy in the head.
That's right. He got a technical for that, but he didn't get one in the Louisville. Did he get one in the Louisville game?
It might have been.
There's a clip where he look. I'm just saying, you want to be able to kind of harness that a little bit, get it under control. But I love it. I love that you got a guy out there, and now he's been at Kentucky now for a year. He's familiar with the system. His game will improve. I hope that he keeps that edge because I love a guy that he can get into other players' heads. Like, you know it. You know when you play against a guy that's just like he's talking the whole time and you want to shut him up. I mean, I love it. I love that he does that. No, I don't want to get into a ton of technicals, and especially in timely situations. But that's one of the reasons I'm excited to have him back, is to bring that kind of attitude to the court. As long as you're within reason, because you and I talked about it a couple times, on the way home from games that, that there needs to be a little bit of that. As Andrew Carr said, we're going to get a little nasty. Brandon Garrison can bring that. He's not afraid of it.
Jacob, there's a lot of, so much upside, very obvious upside with BG. What does the best case scenario of Brandon Garrison look like when we do talk about, like, this is before your time at least covering the Kentucky beat, but Nick Richards was a guy who year one, year two, it was like, when is this guy going to become the 5-star that we all kind of hoped and dreamed he could become? And then he becomes an all SEC talent and all-time fan favorite in Lexington for just how he kind of just put it all together at the right time. Is that kind of a scenario that we're talking here? If he can kind of put the puzzle pieces together the right way, could we get an all SEC campaign for Brandon Garrison as a junior?
Yeah, I think that's not out of the realm of possibilities. If you ask Mark Pope, the best case scenario is he's out there as a knockdown 3-point shooter and doing all of that. I don't exactly want to see him shooting a ton of threes every game, but if he's a good defender, if he can kind of hone it in a little bit, not get too crazy with the ball, and really hone in on what he's good at, he can be an all SEC player.
Jack, I have a question for you. Maybe you know something more about this. It's probably something that hasn't. I'm hoping that we don't have any issues. I hope we don't have to go out and have we're up to no good putting billboards up in Indianapolis. Have you heard anything about that?
No, and there's a reason why. Z's situation was just very complicated, and that might be worthy of a KS board, after dark message board. Maybe after we wait till Z's time in college basketball comes to an end. But it was very complicated. That had a lot of different hurdles. Some self-inflicted on Z's side, some as a result of guys being sticklers for no reason. Like there was a lot of stuff that went into Big Z's eligibility that made it last as long as it did before he got cleared. So okay. I do not envision that to be the case with Jelavic at all. Like I do think that we've seen more kids. I mean, Tommy Slav is a great example at Illinois. We're seeing kids come over to the States and play immediately without any hurdles, without any setbacks with eligibility. And NIL is now obviously kind of helping change, a lot of the financial side of things as well. So Jacob, I haven't heard anything to suggest that, we could see any type of eligibility concerns with Jelavic.
Yeah, like you said, we've already seen over the past year a ton of international guys come in. Don't quote me on this, but I believe from talking to people, sometimes players will have to pay a fee or a sum of money to just reimburse what they made professionally overseas in order to compensate for that. But that's easy to do, and we haven't seen any problems with that for players like the two guys at Illinois and Demon at BYU.
Well, that makes you said don't quote me, but you are on the record currently right now as you're alive to this fan base. So yes, you were on the record with that. So if you're listening to this, then hold Jacob to that.
I said don't quote me, so nobody in the comments can quote me on that.
So Jacob, obviously is a big day for BBN. A lot of the puzzle pieces coming together. We can start seeing the roster vision come together. What's next? Obviously, Lamar Wilkerson, that's obviously very TBD in terms of he's on campus at Indiana right now, scheduled to be on campus tomorrow in Lexington. Is that the next domino to fall? Is that there was some Indiana noise earlier in the day. Is that something that we should have our heads on a swivel with? Is there anybody else that could be popping up? If not for Wilkerson, just kind of how do you see this last, one roster spot working out?
Yeah, Wilkerson is the big one. I've heard a lot of Indiana buzz today, but that's just kind of as expected. As he's on campus, you're going to hear that buzz. I haven't heard anything about a commitment being tonight, and I expect him to make that visit to Kentucky tomorrow. Outside of that, the board is wide open. I'm looking at the board we have here over on the KS board, but there's really not a lot of names that Kentucky has gone very hard after. You've got Mackenzie Mbako, who's kind of trending towards NC State right now. Xavion Lee, who's visiting Kansas this weekend. It seems like Kentucky's pulled back their interest there. And Dan Skillings, they reached out to him, didn't really pursue much further than that. So it's really Lamar Wilkerson. And if they miss out on him, maybe a new name will pop up. There's still guys entering the portal, but right now the board is pretty slim.
Well, what's the deal with this new 2025 kid? Four-star Braden Hawthorne set to make an official visit this week to Lexington. I'm trying to tee you up, bro. Like I'm throwing the alley-oop to you.
We were talking about this before you got in here.
We were talking about this before we went on air. This is a 4-star. I put for 3-star in the article. 3-star by the industry, but On3's ahead of the industry right now. We're
always, of course, obviously.
Always ahead of the industry. Number 48 overall in the 2025 class. A former West Virginia commit, and he will be visiting on Wednesday. That's a really interesting one because he decommitted from West Virginia before DeVries took the head coaching job at Indiana, and now he is actually he met earlier today with West Virginia's new coaching staff. So Virginia Tech, Michigan, a lot of schools involved there for one of the highest upside kids left on the 2025 recruiting board.
Does that have anything to do with Wilkerson? Is that just kind of does that, when we're talking the 15-man roster, type of deal, is that more of a long-term plan, kind of penciling in as, one of those end-of-bench guys? Or does the staff just see him as a guy who could step in and be an immediate impact kind of player?
Yeah, I think that I don't see it as a true backup plan. I think that this is just a high upside guy that you want to bring in on a visit. It kind of reminds me of what Kentucky did last year with a guy, Jamie Vinson, who wound up committing to Texas. I see Hawthorne as having a much higher upside than Vinson, but similar in just taking a high school kid who's just decommitted from a school, a guy that you like, and getting him on campus and seeing where he fits with things. I don't think it's a done deal or anything like that, but I think that you get him on campus, you see where things stand, and if it's a fit for both sides, you make it happen.
Stephen, we'll start wrapping up here. Do you have anything you want to?
Yeah, sure. So, all right, let's say two things. One, there are 1,800 people here right now. Please do me a favor. Hit subscribe. It's if we have to get to $50,000 or $50,000, 50,000 subscribers, or I think I'll lose my job. I think that's how
I will
works.
Personally fire you.
I think On3 wants to see us get to that number. So if you guys can do me a solid and help us get to 50,000 subscribers,
or if you want to pay me $50,000, that works.
You can just pay me $50,000. Either one, I'll take either one. Hit subscribe or give me $50K. The second thing is, if Kentucky were to land Wilkerson. Now, I know he's at IU right now doing his visit. For me, I that could be enough to send him to Kentucky. I think if you just walk around Bloomington long enough, you'll be like, all right, anywhere but here. And if that's who he's down to, then all right. So let's just say they do get him. I mean, Kentucky has to be like one of the odds-on favorites then to reach Indianapolis, right?
Look, I love Wilkerson. I'm hoping that the Indiana visit goes as poorly as possible and Kentucky's visit happens, and it happens incredibly well. We'll obviously have to see how the next 24 hours go. If you can land Wilkerson, absolutely preseason top 5, clear Final Four contender, clear potential national championship contender. There are no flaws in this roster. You go down, it has scoring, it has defense, it has depth, it has length, it has athleticism, it has shooting, it has everything that you need, all of the different puzzle pieces that you can put together that look like a national championship, legitimate contender. So yes, I absolutely think that they are in that conversation if that commitment comes to be. But I also think that there is a path that if he does end up at Indiana and Kentucky has to pivot elsewhere for the next hotshot shooter that enters the portal. Again, we have 10 more days to see what the full landscape of the portal looks like, who else gets added. You're looking for one spot. That is the beautiful spot that Mark Pope has put this roster in, where you can look at the pieces from top to bottom and say, all we need is one last wing shooter. You need a knockdown shooter on the wing.
Yeah.
Obviously a Caden's decommitment throws a little bit of a wrench into things, Jacob. I don't know if there's any new development there. So this next piece is going to kind of be kill two birds with one stone, as kind of a facilitator, playmaker that a Caden was, while also being able to knock down shots, kind of wear a couple different
What's
hats.
more important, do you think? Getting somebody who can handle the ball, or getting somebody who can be a knockdown three? Getting another Kobe Brea, or are they looking for a combo guard, somebody who can do a little bit of both, or somebody who's predominantly ball handling, predominantly able to shoot a three? What do you guys think?
Well, and I think that's the value of like a guy like Wilkerson, who did do a lot of both. He initiated, he played made, he got paint touches, finish around the rim, while also being a dead eye shooter. So if not for him, it's going to be somebody in that mold that you might not get just the pure playmaking, facilitating, highlight reel level stuff that a Caden was going to give you, but where you sacrifice some of that, you're getting better shooting, more consistency in that realm. So Jacob, I don't know if you have any other thoughts there, but I do think that if you can land a guy like Wilkerson, he kind of kills two birds with one stone.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And just like looking at the board, it's going to be hard to bring in a point guard that's of the same caliber as Wilkerson at his position, because all of those guys like Xavion Lee will want to be that starting point guard, which you've already given that position to Lowe. They're not going to really want to play alongside Lowe. I don't really see the fit there. So you kind of have to look for a more high upside, long-term point guard prospect, which I don't think has really popped up on the board yet. But like you said, we have time. Wilkerson right now is just that best available prospect on the board. And I think if you're the Kentucky staff, you're looking for the best talent and then figuring out how to make it work afterwards.
Well, I hope this was 5 rapid reactions this week. I had an absolute blast. I can't believe I'm actually kind of glad that we didn't have to do one earlier in the early afternoon and then do another one late. It would have been chaos, but
worked out great.
Yeah, this worked out exactly the way it was meant to. But I'm hoping that tomorrow brings very good news, or Monday brings good news. And we're in the process of wrapping this thing up. Obviously, still need to see some draft decisions like an Ortega, see where that stands. There's a lot of optimism about him returning, and that I think that should be the expectation for fans. He's deserving of testing the waters and seeing what NBA scouts think of him. So I hope next time we do a chaotic midnight sources say where we're talking about bench pressing Pat Kelsey, it's breaking down his decision to return to Kentucky or opt for the NBA draft, and then we get to celebrate a big time return for him as well. So
yeah, that's such a weird thing too, because like you get to know these guys, you really want the best for them, but then you're like, man, I hope he gets bad feedback.
It's just so weird, but not great feedback.
Yeah. I hope you get really good feedback next year.
I hope scouts say, "Hey, you're a really, really good player, but you could be a great player by working on these things."
Yeah.
One more season at
one more year into Mark Pope, and you will be, buddy.
Right. Well, folks, this was a lot of fun, man. Very hectic day. I'm just all over the place. I started watching Zach Calzada throw bombs in Kroger Field in front of like 8 people, and it's now ending talking about a guy from Croatia that I'd never heard of before today, and talking about the celebration of BG Part 2. It's Brandon Garrison time once again, according to Brandon Garrison. So
yes,
for Jack Pilgrim, for Stephen Peak, for Jacob Polachek, this is a lot of fun. I need a glass of wine or something. It's a
glass of wine. Oh, going classy today on a Saturday.
I don't even know why I said that. I don't even have wine in my house, but hey, we'll go find something, and we'll
go to Kroger, get some wine,
and we'll catch y'all on the next time. Go Cats.